Okay, I think we'll start. Okay. So I'm quite excited about this class because even though I'm going to introduce basic practices to all of you, I want to try and give the biggest possible picture of why we practice. Okay. So I'm going to be introducing a lot of Taoist terms, and I'm going to be doing my best to explain those terms in very simple language so that we really have, the best possible view of the Taoist wisdom. Okay. And, just speaking for myself, I had a very early spiritual experience when I was very young. And for a long time, I was confused about like simple things like, how can this all be one, but we're all so separate and we're all on this tiny little planet? And, you know, and it wasn't until I really dived into alchemy and I understood the cosmology, the big picture, right? So, science has a cosmology, right? Big Bang and everything, they're looking for the primary particle. It's very materialistic, but every tradition, science, religion, they all have a cosmology, right? And Christians have a Christian cosmology, Buddhists have a Buddhist cosmology, right? And you have to use a lot of discrimination to understand that cosmology and to understand like maybe where there might be a lot of human influence rather than direct experience, right? So not only does Taoist teachings give you that big picture, but they also give you the experience. So you can actually learn how to embody the cosmology within yourself. Okay, so all of you know I teach a form called Wu Gong. That form is a cosmological form. In other words, it recreates every time you do it the manifestation process and the process of going back to source as well. So it has both directions built into it, right? The earth sequence is the manifestation. So when you're doing the earth sequence in Wu Gong, you're harmonizing all 12 meridians. And when you do the heaven sequence, you're encouraging yourself to go back to the source, right? So Wu Gong is a cosmological form. That's one of the reasons why it's so powerful, because it's reintroducing every time you do it with your body, you're actually embodying that cosmology, right? So let's start right at the beginning. Okay, let's really start right at the beginning. And we're going to the first thing we're going to say is what is the purpose of internal alchemy? The Taoist word for that is Nei Dan, Neidan. It means internal alchemy. Okay. So what is the purpose of it? Okay. So I want to try and give you a very simple explanation of what I think the purpose of internal alchemy is. And so let's just start, right? So we have, if we look around us, we have everything that's in the physical, right? The Taoists call that later heaven. But if we look at ourselves, we have a physical body, right? You touch it, it's like, yeah, I have a body. Right? But we also have an energy body. But that energy body is much more subtle than our physical body, right? So we can say the purpose of Taoist internal alchemy is to, over time, gradually shift your identity from the physical body to the energy body. And you might say, well, why? Well, at the moment of death, you're going to drop the physical body, right? And your physical body is holding your energy body. It's giving it a place where your energy body can be like, oh, yeah, I've got this internal world of thoughts and feelings and dreams and beliefs, right? But your physical body is holding that. So at the moment of death, if you haven't cultivated your energy body, you're going to be a little bit of shock because suddenly you've lost your body. You know, at the moment of death, we drop the physical body. If we're very advanced, okay, if we're very advanced, we actually integrate the physical body into the energy body and take it with us, okay? And this is what the Taoists call a Tao immortal, an immortal. And so the whole purpose of Taoist alchemy is to cultivate your energy body and to make it your primary identity without, by the way, neglecting the physical body. Okay. They're very important. All right. Okay. Without neglecting the physical body. We have to take care of the physical body, right? And you have to understand that even though we call it physical, it's just a very slow vibrating aspect of your energy body. But where us humans get into trouble is we're so identified with this physical form, with our physical body, that we don't spend so much time cultivating the energy body. Okay. Okay. So you can discover, and the thing about the energy body is it's more subtle and its vibration is more high. It's a higher vibration than the physical body. Okay. And we have an experience of this every night that we go to sleep. We dream. And when we dream, we're in a much more fluid world, right? We can turn ourselves into whatever we want, you know. We can go journeying, right? So this is one of the great teachings of all spirituality, is that our energy body is where freedom lives. There's not the restrictions of the physical dimension. Okay. So now that we've said, okay, we've got this energy body and the purpose of alchemy is to cultivate that, the next question we have to ask is, what is the structure of that energy body? And this is where the Taoist cosmology really comes in a very useful way. But before I go forward, what I'm going to do is check in with each of you as I explain these different concepts. And I want to make sure that you really understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so is there anything that I've just said that you want to ask a question about, or that you feel like is not clear? Could you just, maybe ask anything that comes up for you, just so I make sure we're all on the same page?
I can say something. It's not,
Sure.
maybe it's not a question really, but I'm thinking, yes, you say that the purpose of this is when death comes. Da, da, da. But I'm also thinking the purpose is also, and I know you know that, but I just need, like, it's every day now also, that my life gets so much easier every day when I'm connected more to my energy body. It's like,
Yeah.
it's the difference from living a good life and suffering, basically, if I look at it very clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're raising a very important point here, is that the cultivation of that energy body is always in the present moment.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's
it's
what you're trying
also,
to say.
you're also benefiting from it now.
Right, right.
Just wanted
And the other thing to understand about your physical body is that it's being generated by the energy body. This is the opposite of the science view. Okay. The science view is that, there was this sort of meteorite that came down and there was some lightning that happened in the water. And then suddenly there was a single cell amoeba. And then out of that single cell amoeba, life evolved on our planet. And then suddenly, for some reason in human beings, consciousness woke up. And probably 90% of scientists believe that story. And it's completely the opposite in Taoist alchemy, in the sense that it's the qi, the life force, that is creating everything that we see in the tangible world. Okay. Okay. Any other comments about this? I mean, can you all understand that the purpose of alchemy is to cultivate that more subtle energy body inside of you? We can call it the soul, but it's more like a process. Okay. And I'm going to get into that and explain it in a little bit better, right? Like you can't really in your energy body say, oh, here's the soul right here, and here's the personality. No, it's a process. It's a flow of energy. Okay. It's a flow of energy. And that includes, for example, your feelings, your thoughts, your beliefs. They're all part of your energy body. If you cut open your body, you wouldn't discover thoughts, feelings, beliefs. They're all in the energy body, right? So we say soul, but we have to understand that that soul is in a much deeper level, a much more higher vibrational state and a more subtle state than, for example, our mental body or our feeling body, right? It's more subtle and it's in a deeper dimension, what the Taoists call early heaven, okay? And that's the place that we want to like really start to bring that soul forward, okay? And we want to bring that soul forward into our life much more, okay? So all of the Taoist practices are designed for this. They're designed to bring your soul forward, to make the energy body your primary identity, okay? To make it your primary identity. And to build a new body, a new earth, what the Taoists call true earth. So that's another concept I want to introduce to you, Taoist concept, true earth. So what do they mean when they say true earth? So in this dimension, in the physical dimension, we could suddenly have an asteroid hit our earth and we're all gone, destroyed. We could get in a car accident and our body's gone. Our earth is gone. And it's very shocking when you lose the body. Okay. A friend of mine yesterday went to the sauna and she spent too long in there and she actually collapsed and hit her head. And, she was completely out for a little while. And it's taken her about 3 or 4 days. She's an alchemy student. It's taken her 3 or 4 days to really try and come back into her body because of that experience. And I know other people here, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, Nika, but I know you were in a coma for a long time and you had very strong experience. And, it's sometimes a little bit shocking when you come back into the physical dimension, okay? So this is something that we all will face at some stage in our life when we actually drop this physical body. Oftentimes it happens to us when we have very dramatic events in our life. So, for example, a car accident, or we're close to death, or something traumatic happens to us that makes us feel we're going to lose the physical body. That can be very shocking, okay, for this inner world that we have. So what the Taoists say is that you have to cultivate the true earth. And what they mean by that is the energy body is indestructible. Nothing can destroy it. Nothing can kill it. It's immortal. It's eternal. Okay. So part of the alchemy training is to make our energy body as substantial as the identity that we have with our physical body. And this has all sorts of advantages. Okay. One of the advantages is that you open up communication with the life force that's creating your physical body. So one of the great advantages of Taoist alchemy is not only are you cultivating this invisible aspect of yourself, but you're also cultivating your longevity. So one of the things that I notice with all my students, something I notice with myself, is as you cultivate this energy body, your physical body sort of gets more radiant, gets younger, has more life force, right? So this is true, right? And this is why young children, very small babies, they're so full of energy, they're so full of life, because the life force has created them. They've come out of that life force. They've come out of those subtle dimensions, and they're full of that life force, right? And that's why they're so, flexible. Even very small children, right? They don't get so attached to their emotions. One minute they're sad, the next minute they can very quickly change, right? It's very different to adults, get a little bit serious and get very fixated on a certain feeling, right? And the feeling keeps repeating, right? Whereas a child has that ability to completely transform very quickly, right? So this is the difference between early heaven and later heaven. So I really want to explain these heavens to you because they're really important. That's the next step we're going to talk about is like what is the structure of the energy body? And for that, we need the Taoist cosmological map to understand what that energy body is and what we're cultivating, right? Okay. So let's just open it up again to any questions, any comments. And yeah, just before I go on, because I'm really going to be diving in before we do the practices, before I teach you the practices, why we practice, right? And what is the purpose and why are we doing this, right? Because if you don't have that, if you don't have this big picture understanding, your practice will very quickly get stale and you will stop your practice. And I'll go into the reasons why that happens. We have resistance to going back to source. Okay. I'm going to explain what that resistance is later in this training, but it's been my experience that in the Taoist teachings, I include my teacher, Mantak Chia, this was never explained to me, why we do the healing sounds. I never got the big picture. All I was told was, oh, you detoxify your organs. And in my experience, that is not enough of a reason for your whole body mind to get behind it wholeheartedly. You following me here? You following me? Very important to have the biggest possible picture, right? So if for example, if Mantak Chia had told me, hey, you do these healing sounds, you're going to actually at some stage develop your energy body and you're not going to be afraid of death. That would have been a much better motivation for me. Okay. But I didn't get that, and it's not really out there. It's the simple explanation of why we practice Taoist alchemy. It's not really out in the collective as far as I can see. So it's part of my mission to try and make it really simple and clear so that you really start to get the biggest possible picture about why we're doing what we're doing. Okay. And it's really profound when you understand it at a very deep level. It's a profound understanding. Okay. So everyone with me so far, the reason we cultivate our energy body is because it's immortal. And at some stage we have to let go of this physical body. And it can be a big shock when it's like you hit the ocean of consciousness, right? This is what happens to people, by the way, who take strong psychedelics or these consciousness raising drugs, right? And if those people don't have a strong earth, it can be very overwhelming, very scary, right? They have this experience of expanding their consciousness with something like ayahuasca or all of these different ones. Peyote and all these types of things that really expand your consciousness, right? And honestly, those drugs are nothing compared to the ocean of consciousness that we have to navigate when we go back to source. Okay. Everyone with me? Yeah. Gillian, welcome. I don't know how much you missed, but I was talking about the difference between the energy body and the physical body, and we have to cultivate the energy body as our primary identity, right? Without neglecting the physical body, but realizing that the physical body has limitations, right? So we want to shift our identity away from the physical body over time and cultivate our energy body, right? Now, this process will go on naturally for most human beings, Okay, this process of cultivating the energy body. I mean, a simple example is you get involved in a relationship and your partner starts to trigger all these memories from your childhood. And those memories are in your energy body, right? And if the relationship has a strong earth and it's a safe place, you can start to cultivate, you can start to integrate those, we can say trauma, but the Taoist view of trauma is just stuck yin and yang. It's like a pattern that's stuck and it's not allowed to complete its transformation from yin to yang and from yang to yin and back again, right? So the Taoist view of trauma is just that it's just a life force that got trapped in a certain concept, in a certain belief, in a certain emotional pattern, right? We want to get our energy body much more like how we were as a child, where we would allow ourselves to transform things very quickly and fluidly. Right? Okay. So what is the structure of that energy body? This is where we have to come to the Taoist cosmology of the three heavens: primordial heaven, early heaven, and later heaven. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the map. Okay. Can you all see the heavens? Three heavens. You can see, everyone see? Put your thumbs up if you can see. Can you read what's there? You can read. Okay, all right. So what's important to understand about this map is that it's a vibrational map. It's not a tangible physical thing, right? It's only physical in later heaven. So later heaven, if you look at the top, it says tangible forms, right? It's, in other words, it's things we can touch, right? So that would include stars, our galaxy, you know, anything that we can see and perceive basically is later heaven, right? And the nature of later heaven, especially the nature of human consciousness, not nature, but human consciousness, is that yin and yang does not flow. The five phases, which I'm going to explain in a minute, but you know, we have metal, wood, fire, earth, and metal, right? That's the creation cycle. But those five phases and yin and yang are not really flowing. They're not, things get stuck in human consciousness. And this is why we have sickness, disease, and war on our planet. Because human consciousness is not the same consciousness as nature. The tangible form of nature is very flowing, it's harmonious, okay? Sometimes we don't think it when we see big storms and all these types of things, but compared to human consciousness, the tangible nature that we see in later heaven is very harmonious and balanced. That's why we feel so good when we go into pristine areas of nature, okay? So what you have to understand about this map is it's not just describing human consciousness, but it's also describing the manifestation of this time, space, and beings. That's the best way to describe it, okay? So you can see, if you come down here, there are three heavens, right? Let me just bring it up a little bit. Here we go. Okay. So you have these three heavens here. You have the outer circle is like later heaven. This inner circle is called early heaven. And then this other circle right at the core is called primordial heaven, right? And then inside of that is this Taoist word Wuji, or the supreme mystery, okay? And there you can see pre-space, time, and being. So in the Wuji, there's not even a creation. It's a mystery. It's the core of everything, right? And what's important to understand about this map is that it's a vibrational map. And it's a vibrational map that's describing creation. It's describing causality. It's describing this whole, this creative process, how we ended up here, right? So basically, Tai Yi, which is primordial heaven, is pure causality, pure will, pure love. And Tai Yi is creating this whole experience of time, space, and beings. It's creating human souls. It's creating the physical dimension. It's creating everything. Okay, so it's a very high level of causality. And the unique thing about this particular creation, and there might be many other creations, we don't know, but what's unique about the Taoist understanding of this creation is that it's a free will creation. So Tai Yi, the great oneness, you can call that God in other religions and things like that, but the Taoists don't have a concept of God. It's a concept of chi, of life force, of energy, right? Energy, chi. And so Tai Yi is creating this whole time space dimensions, right? And it's from the inside out. So from our point of view, we've got our later heaven self, our body, and then inside us, in that invisible world, in the energy body, we have early heaven, which is where our soul hangs out. And the unique thing about early heaven is that the 5 phases and yin and yang are all flowing in harmony and balance because of the original energy, the yuan qi, the creative aspect of Tai Yi. There's so much yuan qi in early heaven that all the 5 phases flow. Or, the yin and yang is constantly transforming into each other effortlessly. And we have a little experience of that when we fall in love, right? Have you ever noticed when you fall in love, everything seems to go smooth, It's like, oh my God, it's like, oh, everything is so good. So we instinctively know about this. We feel drawn to spiritual practice because of this, because a part of us is like frustrated, right? That we can't lessly, or things that move so slowly in the physical dimension, right? So we know deep inside ourselves that we want to go back there. We want to make it conscious, all right? We want to make this creative process inside of us conscious. And that's another way to describe alchemy. It's making that which is unconscious conscious within each one of us, right? Right. So this is why each of us has our own evolutionary path, and all of us are doing the same thing. We're opening up to these deeper dimensions of our energy body, and we're making them conscious, making them part of our day-to-day operating system. And it's a big job. Okay. It takes time to do this, all right? Because we're so fixated on the physical, and it's more challenging for us to cultivate the more subtle, okay, these more subtle dimensions inside of us. It's more challenging because, our focus is always on the physical. So you see here where it says ego, 12 organ spirits, right? I'm going to explain this. These are your 12 meridians, okay, in your body. This is the 5 phases, and each of those 5 phases has a yin and yang aspect, and we're going to explore that with the healing sounds, of course. So, for example, the lungs and the large intestine, that's the yin and yang meridians of that metal phase of the life force, okay? And then the heart has 4, and that's how you get 12. So you've got the 5, you have 4 of them with 2 each, and the heart with 4. That gives 12. That's our internal world. That's our internal committee. That's what we think of when we say us, is these 12 organ spirits. And guess what, guys? Those 12 organ spirits are not all in agreement. Some of them want power, some of them want love. So getting those 12 organ spirits into harmony and balance, very important for your life, okay? Very important. Right. Now, interestingly, if we go all the way back, and you see the soul there, which is like your inner heart, that's hanging out in early heaven, but you see how these circles interact because, as I said, the soul and the ego, or we can say the personality, you can't really just cut them in half and say, oh, there's the soul. And no, it's a process. So when you start to balance your 12 meridians, you're also opening up the pathway to your soul. And so you're making that energy body inside of you more conscious and more flowing. Okay. Right. So interesting. So the soul is like the inner witness of our life. You know, it's holding a presence. Our soul is holding a sort of unconditional love for these 12 organ spirits. The 12 organ spirits are very focused on the outer world. They don't trust the soul. and they're sort of attached to the certain power that they get, right? Through whatever, right? And this is the real understanding of ego that I think is much more important than the way in a lot of spiritual paths they talk about ego as being bad. What they mean is unbalanced, unflowing ego is, I wouldn't call it bad, I would call it the cause for suffering. Okay, I wouldn't make that distinction that it's bad, but the Taoist view of those 12 organs is not that they have to be got rid of, because they're being created by source, right? Those 12 organ spirits are originally coming from Tai Yi. Tai Yi steps everything down, right? So our soul is actually creating those 12 organ spirits to evolve and to learn and to grow and to, and to connect back to the soul. Right? Now, if you go all the way back to Tai Yi, and you see here, you see this is the Tai Yi heaven. And remember, this is nested. So these are in deeper dimensions inside of you, right? This is all happening in the present moment, right? And you notice it's a mirror image of what's below. We have this oneness here. And then Tai Yi creates these, what we call 12 oversoul groups, which are really like the creative aspect of source. So it's interesting. 12 organ spirits, 12 oversouls. And these oversouls are creating multiple timelines in early heaven and in later heaven. And they're doing it effortlessly with no effort. It's complete causality. But just like our 12 organ spirits, these 12 oversouls are not always in agreement. And this is where you get the myth of the war in heaven and, Lucifer and all these types of things. I'm not going to go so much into that, but I just want you to see that our 12 organ spirits are mirrored at a much deeper dimensional level by the creative aspect of the Tao. Okay. Everyone follow that? You see that connection? Right? So remember, it's a free will universe. So these 12 oversouls are completely free to create whatever they want to. Right? On all different timelines, effortlessly. Right? So we have all of this inside of us in our energy body. We have the Wu Ji, we have Tai Yi, we have those 12 oversouls, we have our own soul, and then we have our personality and the 12 meridians, right? And that's why I said another description for alchemy is making the unconscious inside the energy body, our unconscious. Like hardly any of us are aware of the 12 oversouls deep inside the different dimension. Most of us are just dealing with the interaction between our soul, what we can call our virtues, those parts of us that are really like loving and kind, and those are all coming in from the soul. And then as those qualities of the life force get download into our physical body, sometimes those virtues get distorted and we start to have experiences like anger and fear and all these types of things. So this is in my book, Emotional Alchemy, where I say the virtue is primary. Okay, love is primary, kindness is primary. And basically what happens is those energies that come in from our soul, like kindness, for example, could easily be distorted by the 12 organ spirits, by these 12 meridians that make up our functioning personality, into anger, for example. So that energy of like rising up, that springtime energy of expansion and creativity, within our personality, it can get very frustrated. If for some reason we see that our plans or our kindness is not received, we can get frustrated and angry, and we transform that virtue of the soul into, we could say, an ego expression, but a better way to say is an unbalanced expression of the life force. Okay. And the other interesting thing to look at on this map is that later heaven is where linear time exists. So where we have this idea of birth and death, and yeah, I'm now 60, and yeah, soon I'll be 80, and all this. So linear time is only experienced in later heaven. Hallelujah. It means if we start to open up our consciousness to the soul, we're going to enter into something called cyclic time. Okay, which is very different to linear time. This is where these timelines are coming in from the oversouls, all these different times. And many people have this experience, on these near-death experience, that linear time doesn't exist, right? And this is why anyone who practices alchemy over a long period of time, they actually start to look younger and start to look more radiant, and yeah, don't get so sick as much, because they're not so fixated in linear time. They're more focused in early heaven time. And when you get to Tai Yi, you can see it's eternal time. Okay. So that's inside each one of us. All these amazing states of consciousness are in there. And honestly, I've never really heard anyone describe it properly like this. So I'm very grateful to Michael Wynn for creating this diagram, because it's an amazing diagram, incredible diagram. It's really based on his internal alchemy practice. You can tell it comes from his own experience of these deeper dimensions. And I happen to know that Michael had an experience of entering Tai Yi himself. His energy body entered Tai Yi and didn't dissolve. So he had the experience of it, in 2003, I think it was. He said he was sitting in a class in meditation, and he just asked, what is the source of love? And he was immediately transferred into Tai Yi. And one of the things he shared, let me stop sharing this screen. One of the things he shared was that when he entered Tai Yi, it was so vast. It was like our creation, our universe, right? It was like a speck compared to Tai Yi. Okay. Now, this is the other thing to understand. This heaven, this later heaven, this is what we see, this is what we identify, but it doesn't mean Tai Yi is not here. It's here. It's here right now in the present moment, but it's so subtle that we can't grasp it. We can't hold it. We have, it's like, oh my God, And we all have that experience. We have this experience of love one day, maybe we do a workshop, or you come and train with me and you have a good experience. But you can't hold it, right? Because you haven't developed the energy body enough to hold that. Okay. All right. So we've now described the structure of the energy body. Let's open it up to any questions, because that was a lot that I showed you. But I want you to understand that that's all in the present moment. That's happening now, right? Okay. Okay. Questions, comments, insights. Let's see if you're digesting this. I want you to feel like you've digested. Yeah, go ahead, Nika.
So when you were saying about the 12 oversouls,
Mm-hmm.
and I suddenly connected to the 12 astrological signs, and
Lovely.
in the planets, and how we get so disturbed by the transitions and the changes.
Yeah, exactly.
And I noticed by my practice that when there are transits and I practice, I feel calmer. I feel more observant, and I still feel, but it is more neutralized. It's
Yeah, perfect. Oh, what a great, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so the 12 astrological signs are just like the human interpretation of those 12 oversoul groups. Okay, it's a human interpretation. All right, so the Western astrologers put those 12 groups in the stars, basically the star patterns, right? And the Chinese, interestingly enough, put them in the earth, the 12 animals, right? But it's this number 12 that's very important. Okay, so I love what you said, and this is my experience as well, because I'm an astrologer, so I know when all the transits are happening on my chart, right? And I have the same experience because of my alchemy practice. I have these, sometimes I can have some very, like Saturn transits, which are traditionally quite heavy, right? But my alchemy practice like smooths that out, right? Why? Because we're balancing those influences with our practice, right? And that's the whole purpose of alchemy, is to get free of those 12 oversouls ultimately and connect back to source, right? Okay. So we're not a victim of those, of our astrology. That's the great teaching of alchemy. We are not a victim of that. We become a victim of that if we haven't developed the energy body. Right? So this is our whole purpose, developing the energy body. And all the alchemical formulas are stepping you up the vibrational ladder so that you can hold more and more earth when all of those different influences come in. Right? But thank you for that, Nika. Yeah, good point. Thank you. Yeah. That is the human mind's interpretation of trying to understand causality. So this is why we have astrology, and science does the same thing. It's trying to understand, how did this come into being? How because science, science can't create. I mean, it can't even create a human heart. Most amazing pump ever existing in existence, right? What created that? The life force, the chi. The life force created that. Science can't even begin to. I mean, we're clever monkeys. We can put people on the moon, right? But I don't think, we create out of nothing, right? That's what the life force does. Right? That's the ultimate creator. Right? So yeah, you can see science and all religion is trying to understand, how do we get here? How the heck did we get here? And yeah. So the Taoists have a very clear vibrational map of how we got here and how to get back. Yeah. Any other comments, questions about this map? Yeah, Rodrika, go ahead.
It's perhaps not a question, but a kind of question suggestion that perhaps some other time you would harmonize this map with the information that comes from the gene keys. Referring to the 3 layers, shadow, gift, siddhi.
Okay, I mean, that's simple. The siddhis are coming from, primal heaven, probably the more subtle dimensions of early heaven. The gifts are coming in from our soul, and the shadows are experienced in our 12 organ spirits. That's how I would describe it, like that. Yeah. So remember, siddhis in the gene keys, and I don't know how many people here are familiar with the gene keys, but the gene keys talk about 3 levels of consciousness, which is similar to, primordial heaven, early heaven, and later heaven, right? And so they talk about these magical siddhis, and it's not really magical from the point of view of causality, from the point of view of Tai Yi and the 12 other souls. That's natural for them to create things out of nothing, to create different timelines, to create different beings. That's why we love creating. And we're doing the same thing in our mind, right? We're creating all these worlds, you know, we're doing the same thing. We're creating all these different timelines in our mind, in our beliefs, in our feelings. We've got that power inside of us, but we don't know how to use it. We use it in a lot of times in a very negative way, right? So you can say that Taoist alchemy is about learning to be creative, learning to be causal, learning to act from love, like Tai. Tai loves its creation, right? So, and it's given free will to our creation. Yeah. Gillian, thank you.
I'm just sitting with what you've been sharing, and I'm thinking as a human here now, it feels like this. Well, first of all, the map is like it helps to separate it all out. But I'm also wondering and sensing, is it like it feels like it's a flow, like we're really learning how to flow
Yes.
through all of them back and forth. Like,
Yes.
like it's,
yeah.
Okay.
Because that's already happening. That flow is already happening. It's coming into creation. It's going back to source. It's already happening. It's just in in nature, it's happening, right? Things are born, things die, go back to source, you know, but there's no resistance. It's only in human consciousness that we have this resistance. We can't do it. We don't know how to do it. And that's why we have spiritual practices, because we don't know how to cultivate this energy body. We don't know how to flow. Our soul knows, but these 12 organ spirits don't know. So you're absolutely right. It's a process.
So as a human, we
Yeah.
also feel a lot of separation because we're
Yeah.
in form, right? But this is like, how do we move from form to formless to form? Like there's this like it's more integrated. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And the reason we feel so separate is because we don't cultivate the energy body. It's that simple. If we cultivated our energy body, we would feel less separation. Mm-hmm. So the 12 organ spirits feel separate from their source. In many ways, in the same way that the 12 oversouls feel separate from Tai. They're focused on their creation, right? And we're doing exactly the same thing. That's why we say it, as above, so below. So we actually didn't create this mess that we find ourselves in. And the ultimate mess is really the separation between matter and spirit. Okay, so now we come into another really important concept that the Tao talk about, the three treasures. Okay, so I want to introduce this now because Gillian's brought it up, so it's important to talk about it. What are the three treasures? I mean, there are many levels of three treasures, right? But the ultimate one is heaven, earth, and humanity. So heaven is everything that's formless. That's like our soul, what we've already described, right? All the way back to Wuji. That's the formless, that's heaven. Earth is the tangible. Humanity has a very important role to play in the sense that the oversouls can't fix it. We're here to integrate heaven and earth, initially within ourselves, but as we integrate it within ourselves, automatically our life becomes an expression of integrating heaven and earth on the outside, the way the actions that we take. Okay. So humanity is one of the treasures of the Tao. Their role is to integrate heaven and earth. Now, the paradoxical thing about this is that heaven and earth are already integrated. So if we took humans away, there's no issue, right? But for some reason, and this is all the mystery of life, right? We human souls are here in this physical dimension, and we have a role, I believe, to integrate heaven and earth within us. So this is why the Taoists talk about Ming, which is roughly described as your potential or your human potential. In other words, the greatest creative aspect of your life. In other words, if you fulfilled your potential, think of a Nelson Mandela as an example, or a Stevie Wonder. You can see a Stevie Wonder is like really living his potential as a musician, right? So we all have a unique Ming, a unique destiny, a unique expression of the 5 phases and the 12 organs and yin and yang. Every one of us is completely unique in that respect. We call that Ming. That's the outward expression of the creative process. And then we have something called Xing, Xing, which is roughly translated as spiritual destiny. It means return to source, return to origin. All Taoist teachings from all over the world, they all say that, you know, the Tao Te Ching and all of the Taoist books and everything, all the scholars agree the purpose of Taoist alchemy is to return to origin. That's the whole purpose of that book, the Tao Te Ching. It's describing the Tao in human experience. So this is something very unique about Taoist alchemy, is that we have Ming, we have in the Gene Keys, you'd call that your gifts, you know, fulfilling your gifts out into the world. But then we have Xing. And Xing is the same for all of us. We all have to go back to source. We all have to go back to what birthed us. That's why we feel like something's missing. Right? It's like, as Jillian says, it feels separate. We feel separate. So that Xing, that spiritual destiny, again, is you cultivating your energy body. That's what Xing is. You cultivate your energy body. And you make it conscious. That will support your worldly destiny, because the more of that subtle vibrational energy that's creating you, that's creating your personality, that's creating your 12 meridians, the more you connect back to that life force, that creative life force, the more effective you're going to be in the world. The more harmony and balance you're going to bring into the world, and you'll be able to fulfill your gifts. So they're very important, these 2 terms, Ming and Xing. So roughly described as worldly destiny, but I like to think of it as your creativity, like your potential, like what's possible for this life. I mean, think of Nelson Mandela, what he did, you know, amazing, right? So he's someone who really fulfilled his Ming, right? And healed South Africa, you know, with the Council of Reconciliation, unheard of, you know, amazing, right? So that was a sort of, I would look at that as Ming, right? And each of us has a unique Ming. We each have a unique balance of the 5 phases, yin yang. Not one of us is the same. But that journey back is the same for all of us. We all feel a little bit separate because we feel disconnected from our early heaven self and our primordial self. Right? Okay, so we're really going into some Taoist terms here. So first is the purpose of alchemy is to cultivate the energy body, because when we die, we're going to drop the physical body. Right? If we're very advanced, and there's many stories of Taoist immortals, when they die, all that's left is their nails and hair. They completely transform the physical into the energy body, right? But for most of us, we'll probably just, you know, make our energy body our primary identity. Okay. And then when we enter into those deeper dimensions, it's not going to feel so strange for us, because we cultivated a new earth, a true earth. We made it tangible. We made our energy body tangible. We made our soul tangible, given it substance. Now, the interesting thing is, from the soul's perspective, it's already tangible. It's so what we're actually transforming is our 12 organ spirits, and we're integrating those 12 organ spirits back with the soul. That's basically what we're doing here. Because what happens for most people is when they actually drop the body, oftentimes those 12 organ spirits just scatter. And the soul is immortal, but those 12 organ spirits, you know, if they don't have a body and they haven't done any cultivation practice, they scatter. And Gillian or Andrew no longer exists. But in Taoist immortality practice, the personality, that those 12 organ spirits merge with the soul and become whole, become integrated. And then the soul merges back to Tai. And you can enter Tai without dissolving. You have your integrity. Okay. This big picture. Right? But for most of us, we want to integrate soul and personality. That's our work. And that's why on my website, it has the number one, I have a quote on my website. The number one issue affecting humanity is the disconnection between the personality and the soul. That's the number one issue. In other words, our early heaven self and our later heaven self feel separate. They're not connected. They're not